Have you ever wondered exactly what languages you should pick as a beginner to get a job as fast as possible this year, right now? Well, that's exactly what we're going to figure out today by ranking these languages on two criteria. First, how relevant they are on the market, how frequently are you going to encounter them on the job, and second, how easy they are to pick up and how beginner friendly are they. So how this works is we have a tier list right here right now on my screen where we're going to rank all of these languages from godly to trash, from the best languages you can pick right now to get a job and make cash as fast as possible, and trash where those languages are going to be your worst bet, you just avoid them entirely. Alright, so let's begin with a pretty big contender here, a big boy language. C++. It takes a lot of work, it's really painful to work with, but it can be really worth it if you're good with C++, because when you leverage the strengths of this language, it allows for really solid development. Also, we have to give credit where credit is due. It's the absolute best language you can learn for game development. It's super present in the game development industry. I don't know, for all of these reasons, I'm gonna put it in the good tier, because again, it's not super beginner friendly, it's kind of hard to pick up, but it can be very worthwhile, and chances are you're going to work with C++ at some point or another, or at least you're going to encounter it. So C++, good tier, probably at the top of good tier actually. And then the next one we have C#. So C# is an interesting one. It's really solid in web dev, and it's also the base of what we have in Unity, which is pretty big in game development again. And also it really stood through the test of time super well. But it's also really not getting picked up by anyone in the new generations that are learning to code. I think it's objectively a very solid language, but also it's falling out of the spotlight quite a bit. I'll put it somewhere in the bottom of good tier. I think C++ is a better bet to learn. C# is good to know, but kind of bottom of good. All right, next one we have Java. Yeah, Java. Java is kind of a meme now, which I'm not sure why. It gets a lot of hate. But with that said, I mean, yeah, okay, it's a bit outdated, especially when you compare it to recent frameworks and languages, but it's still used and it's still backing a lot of what you find on the web. So I think I'll put Java somewhere at the bottom of average. It's not super important to know Java these days, but you wouldn't be doing yourself a disservice either if you were to learn Java. All right, the next one we have PHP. So PHP is kind of in the same boat as Java. Its use has been declining a lot, but it's also very beginner friendly, and it's also still extremely present all over the web. So for those reasons, again, it's not super important to learn it these days because there's newcomers in town that are cooler, that have been picking up more traction. But I would say that it's not terrible either, so I'm gonna put it just above Java somewhere on average. Yeah, that sounds right to me. All right, next one. This one is going to be controversial. I don't have the best esteem of Ruby. I think it's a very solid language. I think it does what it does well. But the problem with Ruby is that it's dying already. I've never seen a language come and go as fast as Ruby has. It became all the hype barely a decade ago, and now already everyone is avoiding it like it's got COVID. So I mean, it is a powerful object-oriented language, but at the end of the day, if it's not valued by the industry anymore, you're not really going to get much out of it. So I don't know, I'm sorry, this is going to be controversial, but I'll put Ruby in mediocre. You might encounter some Ruby, but I don't know, you're not going to want to learn it because it's not showing any staying power in the industry. Alright, so C. It does get a lot of points for its legacy. It's pretty much a grandfather of everything we have these days, except if you're coding in C in this day and age, you just really like to inflict pain upon yourself. If we were in the 90s, C would be an easy god tier, you know, but nowadays I can't justify putting it anywhere above average. So I don't know, there's still a lot of fundamental stuff that is coded in C, so it can't go in trash either, but let's just put it somewhere near the bottom of average, and that's gonna sound good enough to me. Alright, next one, Fortran. Maybe your grandfather codes in Fortran, but if he does, he's pretty much the last one, the last person on the entire planet to do that. I don't know, you're not going to learn Fortran these days. No, it's our first trash tier, and it's not even a question. Don't pick up Fortran. There's no reason to do that. Really no reason. I know some universities still teach it, but why? Why would you do that? It's really a waste of time. Anyways, trash. All right, next one, Rust. So Rust is gaining a lot of traction these days. Rust is very good. It's a good alternative to C++ for machine level coding. So I don't know, Rust is pretty good. It's not been here for quite as long as C++, but there's no really big red flags with Rust, so I'm going to put it in good tier, maybe at the bottom, because I feel like it's here to stay, and it's a good alternative, as I said, to machine level programming. So yeah, sure, Rust and good sounds good to me. Next one, MATLAB. Trash. Bottom of trash. Fuck MATLAB. And fuck you if you like MATLAB. No, I'm kidding. Or am I? Next one here we have Swift. So Swift is Apple's baby. Swift, I hate Swift. I'm going to clear that out. I hate everything it stands for, but I have to give credit where credit is due. It's getting used for pretty much anything iOS. If you want to work with iOS apps, if you want to work with Apple, you're going to have to learn some Swift. There's no way around it. So as much as I hate to say it, it is very relevant in the industry. So for those reasons, I'm going to put it, I don't know, bottom of good, because it's good to pick up. I don't like it personally, but it is what it is. I can't just put it somewhere in trash. That's not how it works. Either top of average or good, bottom of good. I don't know. Let's put it in good. JavaScript, the first big boy in this list, the first really, really big language. It's actually the most popular language in the entire world for programming. So just for that, it belongs in godly tier. If you want to work with anything that is on the web, if you want to work in web dev, you're going to need some JavaScript at some point. And that kind of sucks though, because JavaScript has some really super unintuitive things going about it, which I kind of hate because everybody and their mother has to learn JavaScript basically. But it's not the best language, I would say, on this list, but it's the most popular one, so you have to learn it. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in godly, but it's probably going to be somewhere at the bottom of godly because, again, as I said, there's some things about JavaScript that makes it not a very fun language to code with or to learn. So yeah, that's where I'll put it. Okay, so next language we have R. R is just meh. It sees significant use in data science, but even there, Python is taking more and more space in that realm, and I'm pretty sure R isn't making a comeback to overcome that, so I just can't justify putting it anywhere at the top. It's probably going in mediocre, I would say, under Ruby, because again, if you want to go in data science, you might encounter R, but you'd be better off learning Python. Visual Basics. Okay, Visual Basics is absolute trash. It's not as bad as MATLAB, but I hate Visual Basics because what happens is that a lot of people encounter Visual Basics as their first coding language. Why? Because if you want to code in Excel, which is one of the most used software in the entire world, you're stuck with Visual Basics, and it's really, really bad. It gives people a very bad impression of what coding is, and it's the first impression that a lot of people have in the entire world because of Excel again. So Visual Basics, it's not fun to code in, everybody hates it, and also it's a terrible representation of what coding is. So for those reasons, I'm going to put it in trash. I hope it disappears. I hope Excel moves to something else because this is just no fun to work with. Okay, so next language we have Go. So Go is a new language by Google. I haven't coded with it, but from what I've read, it seems like it has a lot of potential as an alternative to C++ and Rust. So for those reasons, I'm going to put it somewhere the top of average or maybe bottom of good because we all want new alternatives to those languages. There's not many very strong languages for that. So I don't know, I'll put it at the bottom of good, maybe just under Swift. Well, actually, maybe an average because we still have to see if it stands the test of time. So yeah, I'll put it at the top of average. That's where it belongs, I think. Okay, next language, SQL. So SQL is to databases what Swift is to iOS, if that makes sense. If you work with databases, you're going to encounter SQL at some point. There's no way around it. I don't have anything against SQL, but regardless of how you feel about it, if you love it or if you hate it, it's here to stay, that's for sure. It's also pretty much a must-have to know some SQL if you want to work in data science, which I know is a very desired field these days. So I'll put it in good for those reasons, just because of how important it is in that field and how unavoidable it is if you work with data. Next one, assembly. Okay, so another big boy language, TypeScript. TypeScript is pretty much JavaScript, but on steroids. It's an absolute powerhouse of a coding language because it takes everything JavaScript does well, but makes it friendlier. And it's pretty much the undisputed best tool for writing front-end code right now. TypeScript belongs in godly tier, above JavaScript, I would say, because it's here to stay. If you want to learn a new language right now, TypeScript is a really good one to learn. It's a very, very good skill to have, and it's very valuable on the market. All right, so next up we have HTML and CSS. So these two languages aren't really coding languages per se. You can't really execute them to compile programming logic. They are kind of important, but also you don't really need to focus on them because if you're learning another front-end language like a real language like JavaScript, you're going to encounter HTML and CSS along the way, so you don't need to focus on them, but they're still important. So for those reasons, I'll put them at the bottom of average. And then we have Bash, which again is not a real true language, but being able to work in Bash is a useful skill to develop once you're a bit more experienced. However, I wouldn't recommend it at the start of your journey, so I'll put it in mediocre, maybe just, I don't know, above R, because I see it being useful at some point, just not right off the bat. So next one we have Python. This one won't come to a surprise to pretty much anybody. I think it belongs in God tier, maybe even above TypeScript, because if you're a beginner, picking up Python is probably your best bet. It's probably the best language you can pick up to learn what coding is. It's super user-friendly, super beginner-friendly, and then once you learn coding with Python, it's also very relevant in the industry. Python has some flaws, but for anything that isn't throttled by speed, Python is used very, very, very often all across the world, and it's also super user-friendly. So for those reasons, Python is at the top of Godly tier. I would say it's the #1 language you can pick up this year to get a job, make money. It's the best. And then last one we have Kotlin. So Kotlin is somewhat of an evolution of Java. It's kind of TypeScript with JavaScript. Kotlin is used for a lot of backend on the web, and it's also the #1 language you can use for programming Android apps. So for those reasons, learning Kotlin is actually pretty good for you if you want to be versatile. If you don't know if you want to work in web or mobile, or maybe you want to work in both, well, Kotlin is very important to pick up in that case, because it's going to make you allowed to code in both of these worlds. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in good. I wouldn't put it above C++, but I will put it above C#. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's give the tier list a last look, see if there's some things I want to change in there. So Godly, Python, TypeScript, JavaScript, I think that works for me. I mean, realistically, is Python better for you to learn than the other two? I don't know. Python is good to teach you how to code, but then to work in the industry, I would say JavaScript and TypeScript might be a bit more important. I don't know, I still think it's the best one you can pick up first as a language. Also, what's important here is that you don't need to pick just one language and go with it. What you can do is pick one main language, and then once you've learned to code with that, you can pick up 2 or 3 other languages that are more industry relevant. So in this case, what I would suggest is, if you're a complete beginner, what you do is you pick up Python and you learn to code with it. And what that does is it's going to teach you the fundamentals of what coding means, what being a good programmer means. And then from there, what you can do is you can pick up something industry relevant. So if you want to work in web dev, you can pick up Python first and then go with TypeScript or JavaScript. If you want to work in game dev, you can go Python and then C++ or Python and C#. And then if you want to go in mobile, you can pick up as a second language Swift or Kotlin. And lastly, if you want to go in data science, then just Python is super good there. So Python is your #1 pick, assuredly, if you want to go in data science. But also on the side, you can learn some SQL or some R, but I would avoid R. Just Python and SQL for the data science sounds very good to me. With that said, let's see if we want to move stuff around. That sounds good to me. I think it's what Godly should look like. So good tier. I do believe that C++ belongs just under the big 3. I think it's also pretty much the best one you can have in good. I would move Rust a bit up, I think above C#, because yeah, it has a lot of potential and it's getting a lot of use more and more and more. So yeah, that's where I'll put it. Swift and good, I'm still not sure about it, but I'll leave it there. Average, Go, sounds good. It's not proven yet, but it has potential. PHP, Java, C, I mean, those are just average languages. They're like the definition of average. Lots of people like them, lots of people hate them, but all in all, they're fine. Mediocre, Ruby, it's dying, no question about it. R, yeah, same. Bash, I don't know, above, whatever. And then trash, yeah, fuck that. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this content and want to see more like it, please hit like and subscribe. And with that said, I'll see you in the next video. Peace!